In this review, you're going to be listening to the microphone going straight into my Sony a7 III. There's no post-processing of any kind, only makeup gain and a limiter. That way you can hear the raw sound quality going straight into the camera. This current section, as well as the TLDR section in a couple seconds, is not being recorded with the microphone. It is actually being recorded with my Blue Yeti microphone. Tilder! What is this? This is the Lensgo 328C. How much does it cost? Approximately $300. It's a dual-channel audio system with a stereo split. You can insert a 32GB micro SD card into the transmitters to have a safety track recording. No, you do not need the receiver to be on in order for the SD card to record in the transmitter. Unfortunately, you can't adjust the micro SD recording level, but it seems to do a pretty good job for normal talking situations. It also records at 44.1 kHz, which means your audio will go out of sync eventually. Approximately 7 hours of battery life on 2 AA batteries. You can adjust the mic sensitivity in the transmitter as well as the receiver's output levels. Do I recommend it? If you're a wedding filmmaker that would like to combine a wireless audio kit and a recorder all in one, yes. Done. Roll that intro. What's going on, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. So today we're going to find out whether or not the Lensgo 328C is going to be the right solution for you and your overall audio needs. And I want to thank PerGear for sending this out to me so I can provide you with my review today. You're currently listening to it from the lavalier mic, and yes, I'm in a non-sound treated room with a wall literally right here, a bare wall. So this kind of gives you an idea of what it sounds like when it's going into my Sony a7 III. Coming in at $300 for the dual channel setup, you're going to get pretty much everything you need right out of the box, including 2 lavalier mics as well as cables to go into your DSLR and XLR recorder, as well as your smartphone. Now, the standout feature of this setup is the fact that yes, you can actually put a 32GB micro SD card, you can't go any bigger than that, into the transmitter itself, and then therefore have a safety track being recorded into the transmitter that you could use should you lose signal. What's funny is that I actually talked about this a year ago in my Rode Wireless Go review, and now Lensgo is the first company that I'm aware of that has implemented this awesome feature, and it actually does quite well. In terms of other features, we actually do see that there is a mic sensitivity setting now in the transmitter, which is awesome, so that if you have someone that talks quite loud, you can lower the sensitivity of the mic so that it doesn't distort on the transmitter end before it goes to the receiver. This definitely gets you the best combination of trying to get the best audio quality possible. On the top over here on the transmitters, you actually have 2 different options. You can either plug in a microphone lavalier mic, or one interesting feature is that you can actually put in a line signal, and when you go into the menu, you have to tell it whether you wanted to listen to the line or the mic. So essentially, if you want to connect it to a soundboard and wirelessly transmit some audio to a camcorder of sorts, you can do that now instead of using a XLR recorder with the soundboard and having to sync it up later, or just being able to get a nice final mix if you're doing stuff like events or stage performances. Now, this system does not have an internal built-in battery. It has a AA battery system, which I think for certain filmmakers, it's more preferable for their type of work because they don't want to necessarily have to recharge or use a USB battery bank that's on the talent themselves. They would rather just go in and be able to swap the battery out right away and be able to go for the next few hours. And it's really nice to know that the receiver itself also takes into account what the battery situation is for the other 2 transmitters, so that they know if they're reaching that limit and they should stop the take and go ahead and replace those batteries. Now, there is a USB-C port on the side, and basically what they say is if you're using rechargeable batteries inside, you can actually charge it through the USB-C. However, there is a nice warning that says if you're using alkaline batteries and you suddenly insert this charge, well, you could potentially blow up the battery, and that's just something I'm not willing to risk. In fact, I did not want to even test it, and I would highly suggest you probably don't want to test it yourself either, because you just never know with these batteries in terms of these recharging stuff. So anyways, that is something that I want you guys to know, that it is there, and if you want to do it, go ahead, but I would say just play it safe. Get yourself a bunch of these extra rechargeable batteries that you can take with you and just call it good. Don't try to recharge it. Now, unfortunately, if you have the USB-C plugged in, you can't just power it without batteries inside. So if you were thinking about doing it that way, you can't do that. And last but not least, there is a low-cut filter should you need it, as well as a channel frequency scan, which is awesome to know that it's going to try to find the best signal. And then there are these little infrared ports where if you face them at each other and you just auto-sync it, it will change the transmitter to the appropriate channel. All right, with all that out of the way, let's go to the sound quality test. And again, I am doing these sound quality tests with my makeshift soundproof box, so you can really hear what's going on inside the lavalier mic in a semi-soundproof situation. Now, I will be testing this in a couple different configurations, so I want you to pay heavy attention to what do I have the receiver and the mic gain set at, as well as what the post gain is set at, so you can kind of get an idea of how I'm trying to balance the sound to get the best quality possible. What's going on, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. What's going on, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. What's going on, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. What's going on, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. You done messed up, Aaron! 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 For the battery test, I had the transmitters placed about 2 rooms away with a fan blowing at it so that it was constantly sending a signal, and it lasted for approximately 7.5 hours. One transmitter died at 7 hours, and the other one died at approximately 7.5. All right, and now we are at everyone's favorite test, the distance test outdoors. Again, I am testing this in the worst possible situation where I am in a completely wide open environment. We got 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5.5. So this is 50 feet away as I turn around here. This is with line of sight cut off, testing 1, 2, 3. The radio frequency is set to high, by the way. So here we go again, and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.5. So here we are at 100 feet away as I turn around here, block 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3, and coming back over. Here we go again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.5. So here we are at 150 feet away as I turn around here. 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3, and let's continue. Going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 5.5. So here we are at 200 feet away as I turn around here. And then we continue on, going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 5.5. So here we are at 250 feet away with line of sight as I turn line of sight, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. And then coming back, here we go for the final 1 and 2 and 3. You're hearing a lot of wind right now. 4 and 5.5. So here we are at 300 feet away with line of sight. As I turn around here, this line of sight, and I'm just going to move on just a little bit further. Basically, we're just going to test out to approximately 350 feet away. So here we are at basically about 350 feet as I turn around. All right, at those cutoff points, I actually did have my micro SD rolling at that time. So let me show you where it starts cutting out, and then I'm gonna give you a little ding sound so you know when I transitioned over to the micro SD card. We got 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5.5. So this is 50 feet away as I turn around here. This is with line of sight cut off, testing 1, 2, 3. The radio frequency is set to high, by the way. So here we go again, and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.5. So here we are at 100 feet away as I turn around here, blocking the line of sight, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3, and coming back over. Here we go again, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.5. So here we are at 150 feet away as I turn around here, blocking line of sight, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3, and let's continue. Going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 5.5. So here we are at 200 feet away. As I turn around here, blocking line of sight, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3, and then we continue on. Going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 5.5. So here we are at 250 feet away with line of sight as I turn around here, blocking line of sight, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3, and then coming back. Here we go for the final 1 and 2 and 3. You're hearing a lot of wind right now. 4 and 5.5. So here we are at 300 feet away with line of sight. As I turn around here, this is again 300 feet blocking line of sight, and I'm just going to move on just a little bit further. Basically, we're just going to test out to approximately 350 feet away. So here we are at basically about 350 feet as I turn around here. That's funny. And anyways, blocking line of sight here. While the internal recording does a good job capturing what is missing should you lose your signal, it is recording at 44.1 kilohertz instead of 48 kilohertz, which most cameras are recording at these days, which means your audio will go out of sync out of time should you need the safety recording for an extended period of time. All right, let's do the indoor obstruction test. It is raining again, so I am going to do this fairly quickly. I am out of the office. I am in the adjacent room here. My body is blocking the signal. So let's continue on, going out of the adjacent room and going past the living room and kitchen over here. As I make my way outside into the rain, now there's multiple walls blocking. Get my shoe on real quick so you can take a little slight stroll. All right, as we walk out here, this is usually where all the systems start crapping out, so I'm gonna make my way down just a little bit and see what happens. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3, and then now I'm gonna make my way back in. After listening to the sound files, the sound doesn't sound all that bad, and the micro SD that's inside also sounds pretty good. Now, the only thing that I would say in terms of my recommendations is for the mic gain itself on the transmitter side, you're probably going to want to use +1 to +2 for normal speaking. If someone is actually speaking quite loudly or has a booming voice, then of course you can go further down. But usually +1 or +2 seems to be doing pretty good with my voice. In terms of the receiver, on the other hand, I would actually tell you do not go to +20 max out of the receiver because that seems to introduce its own internal hiss, and you could definitely hear it in the noise floor tests. Where I would say is +17 is probably as high as I would go because I did hear the internal noise and hiss drop off, and you end up only hearing the Tascam's internal recorder, which is much more silent. Now, if you do have a higher quality lavalier mic or you would like to upgrade it, you're now listening to the DADW Lav, which cost about $100, so you can continuously improve the sound quality coming out of this Lensgo 328C. So what's the bottom line here? Is the Lensgo 328C something I would recommend to you for your overall audio kit? And the fact that it's $300, it definitely ticks the whole budget standpoint of having 2-channel systems, but it really depends on what you need it for, because certain filmmakers need it and some certain filmmakers probably don't need this setup. So let's break that down real quick. If you are a wedding filmmaker, an event filmmaker, or a documentary filmmaker, it's a yes for me simply because of having that micro SD being able to record on the transmitter side, because nothing is going to freak out a wedding filmmaker more than the audio suddenly being cut off. And maybe it's because the receiver suddenly the battery died, or maybe you completely forgot to bring batteries for the receiver, but you have them for the transmitter, what have you. The thing about this system is you don't need the receiver to be on for it to do anything. You can literally just treat this as its own little recorder on the transmitter side. So knowing that if the receiver suddenly dies on you and your DSLR is no longer getting a wireless feed, your transmitter is still going and you still will have that audio. Now, if you are a narrative filmmaker or YouTuber, it's a no for me because you don't really need these functions. And for narrative filmmaking, I would say you probably don't need it that much, but the reason I'm saying this is because we're starting to see a lot of these small form wireless audios, whether it's the Rode Wireless Go, the Comica BoomX-D, or Comica BoomX-U, and having something that small on a narrative set is definitely more desirable than having this chunkier with two antennas sticking out set. Now, granted, the fact that you can swap the batteries out right away is definitely a plus, and so you're really going to have to ask yourself, is that a feature that's necessary for your type of work? If it is, then yes, then I would suggest this to you because being able to swap out the batteries right away is definitely a plus. Now, while this system is quite good, there are a couple things that I wish that Lensgo can improve on in their next iteration. And the main one is the micro SD. Because even though it's recording that safety track, you actually have no way of adjusting how loud it's actually recording. I've tried moving the receiver volume up and down. I've tried doing the mic sensitivity up and down, and it doesn't matter if you have your mic sensitivity at -3 or +3, it's still going to record at the same level. Now, I'm not exactly sure how it's doing it inside because it seems to just keep the voice around -12 to -6, which is actually a very desirable area to be recording in. But if someone starts screaming, for example, it doesn't try to compensate for that. So you're just going to blow it out. So basically speaking, if someone's just normal talking, I think you're going to be just fine. But if someone is an extreme loud talker for whatever reason, you might actually not be able to do a whole lot with the internal recording. So I would love to see the ability to actually do some fine adjustments of the internal recording itself. I would also like to see them increase the internal recording to 24-bit 48 kilohertz, as that is more common these days, and that would also fix the audio sync issues should you need to sync up a longer safety take. The menu system is unfortunately a little bit old school. It's not very streamlined. You have to go through channel A settings and then go through channel B settings, and there's no quick way to exit out of the menu with like an exit button or you just clicking another button. You actually have to either wait for it to time out or you have to scroll all the way down to the exit. So that's something that I think they can improve on. Lastly, the audio meters themselves on the transmitter and the receiver are not real time. So what I mean by this is if you scream into it real quick and blast it to its max, it actually does that. And then it goes again. So it's not real time, and there's also no markings to kind of determine if you're actually clipping or if you're in a nice good spot. Basically, it seems like there's about 7 segments, and I would say your sweet spot is somewhere between 4 to 5 segments. If you go any further than that, I'm not comfortable with that. So that's just a little guideline for you guys. And hey, that is it for this week, everybody. If this video has made all the influence in your purchasing decisions, I would truly appreciate it if you check out my Amazon affiliate links down below. Again, this costs nothing extra to you. It just gives me a little compensation so I can continue making videos like this for you. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave it down below. I will get to them as fast as I can. And until then, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next one.